This is another in our series on the Israeli research and innovation in medical science. We're interviewing scientists in the Institute for Medical Research, Israel, Canada, and our guest today is Amir Amedi.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, you've done lots of work on vision, and I'm particularly interested in this because I had a roommate at college. His name was George King, and he went blind while in college. And I have another friend after college who got a fungus disease and went blind. And so your kind of work really fascinates me. But before we get into that, I want to get some background. How did you get into this field? You did postdoc research in the States, in Maryland, and New Orleans, and Harvard, etc., and did some work in England. How did that contribute to where you are?
Well, it contributed a lot to where I am, but it all started here in the Hebrew U, where I did my PhD.
What was your PhD on?
My PhD was actually on merging of the senses, how the brain merged the senses, and on the capacity of the brain to reorganize.
This means sound and touch and
Yeah,
visual.
Yeah, exactly. So in the beginning we were interested, for example, to see how vision and touch is being integrated in the brain. As one example, because touch was and its interaction with vision was very rarely studied, and what we actually found led us to start working with the blind because...
What did you find?
So what we found is a new brain area. We called it at the time LOTV, lateral occipital tactile visual area, because what we found is that this area, which was thought for decades to be a visual center, was activated, and it was in the midst of the ventral visual stream. It's the stream in which we are recognizing objects. I recognize your face, etc., etc. I know what is the shape and form of things in the world, is actually being activated as much when we touch objects, but not when we hear sounds of objects.
Well, not when we hear, just touch.
If we hear a rooster doing or a dog barking, it's not active at all. But if we touch a dog or a tool or look at it, then this area is active dramatically, like millions of neurons are firing there very strongly.
And that wasn't known before?
And that wasn't known.
So that's an innovation.
Yeah, so this led us to a theory that I actually continue to work with in Boston with Alvaro Pasqualeone, a theory which is actually look at the brain in a little bit different way than it was than people used to think about the brain so far, because the main ideas about the brain were that and this is one of the most fundamental questions about the brain. What's going on when I'm experiencing the world? Now I'm listening to you and I'm looking at you and I'm, experiencing all this rich thing. Is that the brain takes all this and break it to many, many pieces, many, many small pieces. And each part of the brain is interested in a very, very particular aspect of the external world. So it was thought that all the back of our brain is dedicated to vision. Actually, around 20 to 30% of the brain is dedicated to vision, and some other parts are dedicated to touch in the parietal cortex. And then even within the visual cortex, a very specific area is interested in analyzing the color of the world, and a different area is interested in the movements in the world, etc., etc.
Different things.
Exactly, fantastic. So and one fundamental question is, we don't feel the world as break to many aspects.
Right.
We have a holistic view of the world. So how this is being done, and this division of labor between the senses and brain areas, and within each brain area, each function within each sense, this is the division of labor principle. It poses a huge question. How do we bind everything to it? How we merge the senses? And this is something that interests me from the beginning till now. And so this basically was the finding, and the fact that we found the brain area in the visual stream that is actually as active for touch led us to think that maybe this division of labor is true, but it's not division of labor for senses, as most of the people used to think, but it's for a specific function.
Explain that.
Yeah, so the function that we thought, what is shared by vision and by touch, and is not shared and is not present in audition. And what we found was that actually the actual geometrical 3D shape of objects is very, very similar in vision and in touch. Because when we take a given, I don't know, yeah, a bottle, or we palpate a given toy of a dog, we have a very specific idea of this shape in vision and in touch. And in audition, it's missing because it's completely by association. So I just give you a quick example. If tomorrow all the dogs in the world would start doing meow, right? In the beginning, it will sound a little bit weird, right? And all the cats will do ruff ruff, okay? Or how, I don't know. Every country have a different sound for this, right? So in the beginning, it will be very weird. But let's say it will continue for a week. Then after that week, if you are in your bed and you hear meow meow, that you know in your door you have a dog. So it's all by association. But if you palpate this, the dog can't change to a horse or to a rooster, right? And in vision, the same. The shape will remain the same. So the idea was that the brain areas, the metamodular idea is that these brain areas are having a given task in life, a given mission in life. In this case, is retrieving the shape of things. And then it doesn't matter where we get this information from. And this actually led us to study blind individuals, because we said, let's go to study congenitally blind individuals, because congenitally blind individuals never had vision and never had visual recollections. So when they touch, this is pure touching, right? This is the most pure form of touching without any associations to vision. If also in congenitally blind, we would find this activity in this LOTV area, we know we have a better evidence that this area indeed is interested in 3D geometrical shape.
Well, is that how that blind Turkish painter, I read in one of your painters, that he paints, he feels it all first and then paints?
Right.
It almost looks like he saw it all.
Exactly. So we think the same mechanisms are present in every human being, if it's sighted or congenitally blind, if he's painting or not painting. His case was a very special case in which we could ask him to communicate the shape in his mind through his paintings and scan his brain. And actually we did find activation in him within this LOTV area, but also in any other congenitally blind that palpated shapes.
But how do you do color? You don't feel color.
Yeah, that's a good one, and actually this one we want to study at some point, but we haven't studied yet. Yeah.
Okay.
But what we know
I'll come
from
back in a year for that one.
what we know from him is that he's doing it by associations, just like sounds. Okay. Because in the beginning he used to throw. There is actually some very interesting anecdotes with him. So in the beginning he used to draw and then he didn't draw at all with colors, and then he started to play with colors, and then he put all these weird colors. He would take a watermelon and make it purple in the center. And then people used to tell him, listen, watermelon, it's red in the center and green in the out. So you start doing this. And then people used to tell him, this is really cool, but you know that if you are drawing the sun, then there is shades. So he started in the other direction. So he learned it. So then he started to draw shades, but they were with color. He drew it with color. And people, no, shades don't have color. So, this type of some things, they are, I think, inherent, like our ability to represent shape and to draw shape, etc., etc. Even to represent perspective. That was amazing, because even though he never saw, he was able to draw things or objects within one point of view, and then we would tell him, now draw it from as if a sighted person would look at from the top, and he would draw it like this. So this says that there is some intrinsic.
Piaget had that whole concept
Yeah,
that it was built
yeah.
in. Let's take a break and come back, and we'll get into some of your own particular work.
Sounds good.